the pressure is on Wesley. I mean, if Magnus survives this, I've seen everything.
This brand new Epic Chess exclusive 12 days of Chessmas calendar is the reason that I must apologise to you this evening, Thursday 19th of December. I can't bring you the latest chess. I'm tied up doing a shoot for that one, and so we're going to look back at probably the game of the tournament so far, played on day one. Who was playing with the white pieces? Say it ain't so. Wesley's a pro, absolutely shredded, but is he as ripped as the world's #1 grandmother, Mag Flexington Carlsen? Look at him go there. What a player, what a fight this is. Unreal. So Wesley opens up with a move of pawn to d4. Magnus pops a pony on f6. We get the explosive pawn to c-shore, and after e6, knight c3, we now see the bishop developed with a whoosh. We're in a Nimzo-Indian. Wesley goes for the classical approach, keeping the pawn structure intact. d6, may we? The bishop has nowhere to flee now, but fear not, Magnus has it covered. The knight's now develop into the game. e3, is Magnus now preparing to fianchetto the rook? No, sanity prevails as that one hits the long diagonal. Castles is played, and with the king having now tiptoed out of the x-ray, it's time to chop this one. You don't want to get caught offside. Magnus knows this, loves his sport, plays with such poise and grace anytime he hits the court or the pitch. We now get queen recaptures, and bang, don't Botez gambit the lady, that wouldn't be ideal. And already now here the game spices up because Magnus makes a mistake. Move 10, he should castle, but he immediately pushes on with that f pawn. Why is it a problem? Well, Wesley knows. He sits back, channels the power which has always been within him, and pushes on with pawn to d5. Excellent move. Now in the game, Magnus captures there. What if he goes e5? Looks quite natural. Well, the problem is this tender pawn, and knight e1, anyone for a knight maneuver highlights it. f3 on the way, then the pawn drops. What if castles? Looks really natural. Well, still you do it, and suddenly this knight looking really clumsy, the pawn still drops. The queen can't take on h4, the knight drops on d7. It's a really woeful line for black. Magnus has messed up. He's shaking his head. He takes on d5 therefore. Yes, it's the mistake, but he's just trying to randomize things now. Wesley shows the follow-up point, and it's not recapturing, it's knight d4, and that one is growing arms and legs. An absolute beast. Stallion flying into the position, hitting the pawn and this tender square. So Magnus takes another one, in for a penny, in for a pound, right? Now Wesley hops forth, and you have to slide the queen here to stay with the c7 pawn, but then of course you can take here. But what is this? We've gone to the analysis mode, back cave. Wesley did not play the top line here. King goes somewhere, you know, if you step this way, you're stepping into the light squares, dangerous. This way, top move of the engine. Well, then still there's these problems, right? Pieces dropping off the board. Here's one sample line where you don't even touch the pawn. You set up this rock solid defensive display, away you go through the center. What a horrible king. But Wesley got spooked, started seeing ghosts, first plays pawn f3, thinking Magnus gonna move that knight first. Oh no, Magnus knows, goes with the advice of the DOGG, and if in doubt, bomb cloud that king. Hits the knight here, absolutely love it, saying you take me, I take you. So Wesley now takes the pawn here, looking at f5, but Magnus covers and hits the knight. Still hasn't moved that one, still he's trying to randomize. So Wesley sidelines this one, but it is headed for the wonderful outpost on f4. Finally Magnus has to get out of dodge, and now this pawn drops. Wesley still with a significant advantage. He's got the bishop pair, he's got the better pawn structure. Magnus is king, flying high as a kite, flapping out in the middle of the board. Now knight e5 hits the queen. Wesley spots it with a check. King d7, and before Magnus can coordinate any further, the knight's kicked. It's stumbling back to this square. Bishop b2, and that is a bishop scything down the diagonal that you do not want to be dealing with. So many problems. So what does Magnus do? True to his style, queen e7, offers the exchange. Let's take it to an endgame, bro. At least I've got a chance there. You don't have to stop the ladies. The top line is flicking in a check. Yes, c6, but then the computer goes knight f6 check. Crazy ninja stuff that Chicken Stockfish finds, but that wasn't played in the game. Wesley does take the ladies off. Has he gone completely nuts? You never do this against Magnus Carlsen. Will know this is the follow-up point, and Wesley's still doing really well, because if the knight moves, you pick up a clean exchange, and if you do this, which was played in the game, you're still worse. Now we're going to see why. Don't capture the knight. This is absolutely awful. You step into the classic windmill, and okay, it's just death on the board. There are mate lines. There are other lines where you pick up almost every piece in the white camp, so you don't do that. So we run back, the knight wasn't captured, Wesley drops back, blocking the g-file here, hitting the f5 pawn, and because of the structural weaknesses, because of the fact that you're about to backpedal, Magnus, I forgot to say as well, must win this game. He'd lost the first, he goes bang, sacrifices the rook, we love it, pawn recaptures, and now he plonks a knight on g4. At least he's got play, targeting this backwards pawn, and this next move is criminal. You know, this one that the engine finds, bishop d3, much nicer move, because now if you take, well, rook fe1, and you're doing some nastiness down this file. You know, here's a sample line, but then this and this and this and this and this and this and this. White's doing great, right? Just to show you one thing, but these top guild masters, they're capable of finding this stuff, especially when you realize you should keep your bishops. The board's starting to open up, but Wesley plays bishop takes on g4. Hang your head in shame. That's not going to make your coach happy. Pawn recaptures here. f5, yes, gain space. Very dangerous pass pawn, unopposed, but gives some squares. The knight starts hopping like Kermit the Frog. This one now clamps on the position. You know, you want to open files for the rooks. You want to get them attacking the backwards pawns, but Magnus fights back now with this pawn push, and Wesley reinforces the structure. The knight centralizes, natural as cheese and chips. Pawn under fire, and it wasn't defended here. Not entirely sure why. King h2 looks natural, you cover the pawn, put the king in a bit of a box. Maybe Magnus was worried about some absolute weirdness, I don't know, but then you step back anyway. Although then you have to watch out for Arabian mates. Anyway, we get ahead of our
mushrooms.
But he didn't go king h2 for whatever reason. He goes pawn a5, perhaps attracted to the idea of setting up the pawn cube here, aka the pube, very rarely seen at the top level of chess, and that's why in a moment the pube is shaved, as we're going to see, because after Magnus takes here, Wesley now just does not find the right continuation. He should check. Then when the king goes, you can play something active like rook fd1, and you're threatening to take and then do this one here. And if Magnus takes, there's b6, and you're collapsing the structure, also threatening this check to win a bishop. This is the thing. This is why b6 is going to drop. It's nice play. It's active play. It's what a man in form would see at this elite level of chess. But Wesley, avert your eyes if you're easily offended, plays rook fe1. Oh, disgustingly passive. Makes you wince. And Magnus now shaves the pube by taking on a5. We get f6 check. King e6 played. Rook recaptures. The entire pube collapses, but the playing hall is still intact. The game goes on here, and Magnus is right back in it. Excuse me. Can't find my voice today. Absolute game on, incredible, down to a minute scramble each. Now bishop d5 technically best, but that's too deep to figure out the detail of in this time control. It's actually a bit less stable in some lines on this fourth rank, along with the pawn here, but missed. Wesley should go king h2 straight away, missed. Another micro inaccuracy with rook a1, or you could say a macro major inaccuracy, because Magnus can now actually chop the rooks, not play played. And this endgame is very hard for white to break down. You know, where's the actual win here? But naturally, Magnus didn't go for this because he needs to win. So he keeps pieces on the board, wants to push that past juicer. And now Wesley makes another mistake. King h2 should be played, but rook g5 played. Going after the pawn, yes, but h5 from Magnus, cementing it. We're ignoring the cross there.
And the pressure is on Wesley. I mean, if Magnus survives this, I've seen everything.
Rook g7's played, coming in behind the king, so Magnus backpedals, hitting the rook, covering e7, rook h7 therefore played, hits the pawn, but again, Magnus, this is what he does so well, and the absolute top guys, Ali Reza, Kasparov, Hikaru, they go active, they go for the play, they're such good blitz players. Fine, take my pawn, I'm going to take your bishop. The bishop saves itself, but now, with 2 pawns under fire, Magnus of course pushes the passed pawn and sets a devilish trap here. If rook takes, not played, then bang. The knight hops forward. They're such tricky, we won't swear. And after the rook goes somewhere, bang, knight e2 check, and you just can't get out the forking way. The bishop drops off the board. Incredible lines. So Wesley didn't touch the pawn here. He plays king h2 finally, and now Magnus starts turning the screw. This is just chess goatery of the next level. Why doesn't he take the pawn here? Well, it's not the order of the day. You relinquish control of this key square. The king staggers up the board and the pawn starts pushing. Suddenly, white's the one playing for the win out of nowhere. Well, not out of nowhere, incorrect statement. But anyway, that wasn't the move played. h4 from Magnus. Rook a4 is a good move to try and destabilize. King d5 then best. You know, if you push here, you have to be very careful of these lateral checks. King's running out of room, knight has to start blocking, whole thing collapses. But Wesley misses it again. He plays rook a to a7. Really natural ideas, to be fair to him. But he's just that kind of one shred short of the precision play that's needed to compete at this level. Can't find it. So Magnus goes h3, and again, it's just trap central. If you take this pawn, then g3 check comes. Where's the king going? The bishop slices. This the only move. Knight supporting the pawn, of course. And look at the barrier that these pieces form. Therefore, check and mate after the bishop blocks. Wow. So you cannot touch this pawn here. What was played then? Rook he7. Wesley going for the desperation, right? You've got to make play. This knight's just gluing everything together. Magnus doesn't take, steps up the board here, and now the pawn runs. The way to go here to keep an equilibrium is with rook e to b7. Stop the entry route. If the rook comes here or something, then you can slide back, or if the rook comes to the h-file, slide back, etc. But we don't see it. Wesley pushes the pawn, really natural idea, looking for rook e8, but now Magnus slams down with knight e7, taking that one off the board. Rook recaptures, same threat on the way, but takes, and this is terminal for white. If you go for this plan to then mate the queen on the next turn, well, rook b1, sure you can mate the baby girl, but bang, that isn't just check, it's a mate on the board. Can you even checkmate with the rook? No, you can't, the king escapes, so you do have to mate the queen, but it's still mating however many once you mate the queen. So these are the problems. You have to fight against this. So instead, Wesley picks up the rook and sacrifices the second exchange in about 2 or 3 moves, right? Magnus is now the exchange ahead, but there's a problem. If you play the most natural, king takes pawn, then Magnus just comes around and scoops this one up. Here's a sample line. This drops. It's rook against bishop and 2 pawns for black. Completely terminal, of course. So we come back here. That's why this was played, preparing to promote, but now Magnus can march in, support his pawn. Again, what happens if you mate the queen? Bang, bishop takes, and king f2. You're making a queen, nothing you can do to avoid, and that's actually checkmate. This takes the flight square. Amazing lines. So that's why the king steps back to take control of f2, but of course this is hopeless. Wesley's moribund. Magnus slams this one down. One of the most incredible games of 2024. The king's only got one legal move. It wasn't played. The resignation came. If it had been, though, different ways to checkmate. Of course you can make the queen. Of course you can make the bishop. Bounce it round. You can even do this one to get a bit fancy. Unreal game from Magnus Carlsen, world number 1, and he's storming the tournament right now. Hope you enjoyed this one. I'll be back tomorrow with some on the date chess, Friday 20th of December. Thanks very much for watching. Check out the video on screen and don't forget to subscribe to never miss more septic cheese. Cheers.